My mother locked me in with 5 lawyers. She didn't know I was recording everything.
The moment my mother locked the boardroom door, I knew she had mistaken my silence for surrender. 5 lawyers sat around my father's polished walnut table. My older brother stood behind them with his arms crossed. My mother leaned toward me and pushed a thick agreement across the table. Sign it, Grace. Then we can all go downstairs and pretend this family still has some dignity. I was still wearing my white navy dress uniform from my father's memorial service. His portrait hung on the wall behind her. In the photograph, he looked calm and confident, like he already knew how this meeting would end. My mother thought she had trapped me in that room. What she did not know was that I had spent the previous 6 weeks building a trap of my own. My name is Grace Mercer. I was 38 years old, a commander in the United States Navy, and the only daughter of Robert Mercer, founder of Mercer Defense Systems in Virginia. My father built communication equipment for Navy ships. By the time I was in high school, his small workshop had become a major government contractor. To the public, we were the perfect family. My father was the inventor. My mother, Margaret, was the elegant businesswoman. My brother, Caleb, was the natural heir. I was the difficult daughter who joined the Navy instead of joining them. My mother never forgave me. At my commissioning ceremony, my father hugged me so tightly I could barely breathe. My mother gave me a cold smile and said, "One day, you will understand what you walked away from." For years, I believed she meant money. I was wrong. My father and I stayed close, but he became quieter as Caleb took more control of the company. 6 weeks before he died, he called me after midnight and asked a strange question. "Grace, when someone gives you a document and tells you there is no time to read it, what do you do?" I read it twice. Then he said, "Good. Never let family turn urgency into obedience." 6 weeks later, he died from a heart attack in his office. My mother called me 2 hours after it happened. By then, his body had already been taken away, and his office had been cleaned. That detail bothered me, but grief made everything feel unreal. I flew home the next morning. At dinner, my mother and Caleb spoke about urgent contracts before they spoke about the funeral. They said father's will would be discussed after the memorial. Neither of them looked surprised by anything. That night, I found a voicemail my father had left 3 days before his death. My phone had marked it as spam. His message was only 11 seconds long. "Grace, check the old compass. Use the date you first outranked me, and trust no document with a blue corner." I listened to it 4 times. The old compass was a graduation gift from him. Beneath its velvet lining, I found a key for a private locker at Union Station in Washington. The code was the date of my promotion to commander, the day he joked that I finally outranked him. Inside were a notebook, a flash drive, and a letter in my father's handwriting. The first line made my hands shake. "If you are reading this, Margaret and Caleb moved faster than I did." My father explained that he had discovered serious fraud inside Mercer Defense Systems. For almost 2 years, Caleb had bought cheap foreign circuit boards through a hidden company and relabeled them as American-made military components. False inspection reports hid the difference. My mother had approved the payments. That alone could have destroyed the company. But there was something worse. Some of the untested parts had already been installed on ships. My father found the scheme during an audit. He stopped the next shipment and demanded that Caleb report it. Caleb convinced him to wait 48 hours to protect the employees. During those 48 hours, records disappeared. Then my father died. His letter did not accuse them of causing his death. He had a serious heart condition. But it said they had used his illness to isolate him and move records he was too weak to defend. He also warned me that they had forged my name. The company had always advertised that the founder's daughter was a Navy officer. Then my mother and Caleb created reports showing I had served as an unpaid compliance advisor. I had never advised them. I had never approved a single shipment. But buried in the flash drive were inspection forms carrying a copy of my signature. Suddenly, I understood why my mother had been so eager to discuss the company. If the fraud became public, they planned to blame me. I wanted to drive straight to the family house and confront them. I wanted to throw the evidence on the table and watch their faces change. My training told me to do the opposite. I contacted military investigators, reported my family connection, and handed over copies of everything. I removed myself from every official decision involving the company. The agents warned me that the notebook and flash drive were strong leads, but they still needed evidence connecting my mother and Caleb directly to the forged records. That was when the pressure started. My mother called every morning. She cried, threatened me, and said hundreds of workers would lose their jobs because I was too selfish to help my own blood. Then a story appeared online claiming I was under investigation for using my military position to benefit my father's company. The article included details that only my family knew. My commanding officer placed me on temporary administrative duty during the review. I had done nothing wrong, but the rumor spread faster than the truth. For the first time in my career, people looked at my uniform and wondered if I deserved it. That hurt more than losing any inheritance. My mother knew exactly where to strike. 2 days later, Caleb visited my hotel and acted like the protective brother I remembered. He said the online story would disappear if I signed a family settlement. "You can go back to your Navy life," he said. "Let us carry the burden here." I asked him what I would be signing. He smiled. "Nothing complicated. You transfer your voting shares to Mom. We give you $3 million, and everyone walks away clean." There it was. Not safe. Clean. I told him I would consider it. He relaxed and said, "Dad always knew you would do the right thing." After he left, I cried. My brother had used our father's memory like a weapon. The next morning, my father's estate attorney met me in a grocery store parking lot. He said the settlement was not just a transfer. Page 47 stated that I had approved 18 months of compliance reports. Another section blocked me from examining older records. If I signed, I would surrender my inheritance and accept responsibility for their crimes. Caleb expected to inherit control of the company. Instead, my father left 51% of the voting shares to me. My mother and Caleb still received millions. They were angry because my father had taken away their control. The attorney gave me the original will. A corner of the cover was blue. I remembered my father's voicemail. "Trust no document with a blue corner." The attorney went pale. After comparing signatures, he admitted the blue covered will was a replacement my mother delivered after father's death. The real will was sealed in his private records. My father had not been warning me about the settlement. He had been warning me that someone would replace his will. That changed the investigation. The estate attorney agreed to cooperate. Investigators confirmed that the signature on the blue covered will had been copied from an older document. They also traced the hidden supply company to a trust controlled by my mother. Still, she behaved as if she had already won. She scheduled an emergency board meeting for the morning of the memorial, knowing I would be in uniform and would not want a public scene. 5 lawyers would be there, she said. If I refused to sign, they would sue me, challenge my fitness, and send the damaging story to every major news outlet in the country. The investigators asked if I was willing to attend. I said yes. That was how I ended up at my father's table while my mother demanded my signature. The room had the same gold curtains, brass lamps, and portrait I remembered from childhood. Only I had changed. My mother tapped the signature line with one perfect fingernail. "You abandoned this family years ago," she said. "You do not get to return in a costume and take what Caleb earned." I looked down at my uniform, then back at her. If I abandoned the family, why does the agreement say I approved the company's inspections? The room became quiet. Caleb stepped forward. "It is standard language." "Then explain it." One lawyer opened his mouth, but my mother cut him off. "Your name was useful," she said. "That is all. The government trusted the company because of you. We did what was necessary to protect your father's legacy." I asked, "Did Dad agree?" Her face hardened. "Your father became weak. He was going to confess and destroy everything we built." I corrected his mistake. I felt my pulse in my throat, but I kept my voice calm. Be forging his will. Caleb swore under his breath. My mother looked at the 5 lawyers. None of them met her eyes. Then she made her final mistake. She leaned close enough for me to smell her perfume. "Sign the agreement, and the investigation into your career disappears. Refuse, and I will make certain everyone believes you approve those parts. I have your signature on every page." I slowly closed the agreement. "No, Mom. You have a copy of my signature. The original is right here." I pointed to my chest, where a small recording device was hidden beneath my uniform jacket. Her expression changed. For the first time in my life, my mother had nothing to say. The oldest lawyer at the table stood up and unlocked the boardroom door. He had been cooperating with investigators for 10 days. Federal agents entered with warrants for the company records and the private offices upstairs. Caleb moved toward the side door, but 2 agents were already there. My mother did not run. She stared at me as if I had committed the betrayal. "How could you do this to your own family?" she whispered. I stood and picked up my father's real will. "I learned it from you," I said. I protected what mattered. The arrests were quiet. There were only handcuffs, calm instructions, and 5 expensive lawyers claiming they had known nothing. But the truth did not end in that room. The investigation lasted 11 months. Every questionable part was replaced before anyone was hurt. The government recovered millions. 2 attorneys lost their licenses. Caleb pleaded guilty to fraud and conspiracy. My mother fought every charge until the estate attorney testified and her own words from the boardroom were played in court. She was convicted of fraud, obstruction, forgery, and witness intimidation. The judge sentenced her to federal prison. Before she was taken away, she turned toward me and said I had destroyed my father's company. For a long time, I wondered if she was right. Mercer Defense Systems lost its government contracts and our family name. Several executives were fired, but the workers were not abandoned. I used my shares to restore the pension fund my mother and Caleb had raided. Then I transferred most of my voting power into an employee trust. The people who had built the company honestly became its largest owners. I did not become chief executive. I did not take the corner office. I placed my remaining shares in a blind trust and returned to the Navy after I was fully cleared. The public correction received less attention than the original accusation. That is usually how it works. A lie arrives with a marching band. The truth comes later and quietly sweeps up the mess. 1 year after the boardroom meeting, my father's estate attorney gave me one final envelope. My father had asked him to deliver it only after the company was safe. Inside was a short letter. "Grace, if you are reading this, then I asked too much of you. I am sorry. I did not leave you control because you wanted it. I left it to you because you were the only one strong enough to give it away. A uniform does not make a leader. Protecting people who cannot reward you does. You understood that before I did. I read the letter at his grave. For years, I thought my father had chosen Caleb because Caleb stayed close to the company. I thought I had disappointed him by leaving. Now I understood. My father had never been ashamed of the road I chose. He had been watching me become the person he needed. My mother locked me in that boardroom because she believed power belonged to whoever controlled the door. She was wrong. Power belongs to the person who is no longer afraid to open it.